Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on an oldie. I can't find much history on this one. This one's called the Castey. It's made by the Clarkson Company in Belmont, California, and that's about all I can find. I went to the Orca site and some other sites, and nothing. So I don't even know a little bit of history on Clarkson. And if you do, I'd be happy to hear about it. I'd like to learn a little bit more about this reel. When we previewed this reel a week or two ago, it was sent in by Dan, and it had a horrible spool chirping, and I noted at that time it was missing a side bearing. Well, this happens to be a Fluger reel, but surprisingly that little bearing was able to fit in here and solve the issue with that spool rubbing up against the side plate because it couldn't be adjusted. So I've solved one problem. I've created another in that I now have a Fluger reel that's basically bound for parts, but it's better to get one of these fishing than have two of them sitting on the sidelines. So we're going to take this reel apart. We're going to try and figure out exactly what's underneath it. I haven't worked on one of these before. I can't find a schematic. Orca only tells me that the reel was made by this company in California and nothing more. And if anybody has any information on any more about this reel, I'd love to hear it. All right, we're going to start by removing the exterior pieces. This one has a big screw in it for the handle. And while I do that, I'd like to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. That's fire, police, rescue, EMT, all of the medical workers and hospitals and doctors' offices and clinics that are giving out the vaccines and everything else. Thank you for all that you're doing there. It really is appreciated. Okay, these have some pretty heavy-duty screws on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. Use the appropriate screwdrivers when you go to take these out, at the risk of butterflying those little slots there. And if you kind of rip them up, then chances are you're not going to find a replacement for these. I also like to take these out and lay them on my desk just to make sure that all of the screws are the same size and are interchangeable. Well, this is a little tight one here. That's a good point. If you're working on an old reel, you're almost guaranteed that you're not going to be able to find pieces and parts. So don't be afraid to do a little extra step here. Go spray it with some penetrating oil, and that'll help loosen them if you do get a stuck one in there. You don't want to break one off because, again, you're not going to find a replacement for this. Interestingly enough, I'm assuming these reels are not very collectible because I did go on to try to research it, and a lot of the pieces that came up were from eBay and other selling sites, and they were selling rather inexpensively, or at least I thought they were inexpensively, probably in the $15–20 range, which kind of surprised me. All right, those are the 6 screws. They're all the same, so I'm going to put those into a parts tray. You'll notice it's off camera, but I use just the bottom of a jug to keep all my pieces and parts. And let's see if we can remove the side case with that. And I didn't think so. I was suspecting that there's a screw hiding under here, and it looks like we need to take off the balance of this shield here to get that last screw. I guess one of the things we could do is remove the two from this side and pull it out, but it looks like regardless of how we're doing this, this has got to come off. Not sure if this has to come off, so I'm going to go to the outside first. And this is just flying by intuition right now. I've never worked on one of these. I'm a little bit unsure of just how this setup is, and that gets a little scary, right? We all get a little nervous here when we see this kind of stuff. But let's see if I'm believing all of the gearing is behind here. And to me, it just makes sense that these 3 screws are the ones holding the case in. I'm looking underneath here just for indication. And this is a good time to tell you to take pictures along the way. If you get stuck, pictures are a great reference point. All right, let's see if that comes off now. Well, you have to take the other piece off here, the free spool release. There's some springs under here. I'm feeling them. So we're going to want to be careful here as we lift this up. All right, take pictures with your digital camera, your cell phone, do a video like this, whatever. Just keep in mind where you are in the process and what you did. So the last screw out was this free spool release. I'm noticing that that comes on like a little gear shaft. That's probably good. We don't have to worry about the internal mechanisms too much. Let's take this off then and see what we have. And very interesting. And of course, yes, there's that other screw for that side plate screw. But as we have access to all of these gears, I kind of realize you don't need to take the side plates off. This is just a dead end on this side with a little bearing. And the rest of the stuff is accessed through the top here. And that's that big spring we were talking about. So let's make sure that we take that spring and put it in a nice safe place. Also note that that spring is conical. This top end is smaller than the bottom end, and it seats that way, small side in. Alright, here's a main gear that should just come off. We have our anti-reverse underneath. I didn't see an anti-reverse override for this, so we're just going to assume that's that. Here's our pinion gear or spool gear. That would be next. And that comes with an extension. And this is the little lever that's going to enable it to go into free spool. So the wheel is very clean, but we're going to just use a little bit of a penetrating oil here as a detergent. Degreaser. I'm going to use a cotton swab just to get some of that old grease off of there. Seems to be a little bit of a buildup. So very simple in design, and it's definitely a unique design. I haven't seen this one before. But what does that mean? It just means that I haven't seen it before. Alright, there's a little bit more. I'm using a light steel wool with the oil here just as a way to get some of that grease off. And I guess since we have the plate off, we might as well take that last screw out just to get access to the spool and make sure that we are clean behind there. This is where it gets dangerous. You just took a lot of pieces and parts off, and it's pretty easy to get confused in what you're doing here. I just took this off to make sure that we weren't trapping anything under the spool here. You don't want to ignore it. And I also want to make sure that on the inside of this we put a little grease. Again, very clean. It's bone dry in there. The clicker has never been used apparently. It's got a nice sharp point on it. But we'll do that. While I have that off, I'm going to use a little bit of rod and reel cleaner here. I'm going to use a pen rod and reel cleaner. Just put a little bit on the back of that scrubby pad there. And that provides easy access now to just go ahead and clean the inside of this while we're at it. And I'll wipe the excess off with a paper towel. And we can grab that spool, put the spool back in. Just check. You want to watch this dog here, that you don't lose that dog while we're doing all of this. Do the same thing, just grab that scrubby and come on around the other side just to make sure that that stays clean. I'm going to go remount this. And remember where your screw came out of, your flat screw, the large flat screw. It's kind of easy to tell on this one because it's the only one with a tapered hole. The others are coming in from the side plate on the outside and are just standard holes, but this one is threaded. And we can go ahead and put that back in. So once we've serviced our main gear, it's time to put everything back together again. So we have the click ratchet and we have our anti-reverse. You pull that out of the way. Make sure you get a little grease onto that axle shaft there for the main gear, and you go ahead and put the gear sleeve on. This is how your anti-reverse is going to work now. And we can take our spool gear. Remember that little carrier that we had? The carrier is going to ride in there like this. And we can install that. And there was a little wing that provides a ramp here underneath. You'll notice that there's a little tab on that. There's a little groove that tab rides in, so make sure you get that tab into the groove. Then this assembly goes over the spool, and it goes over the shaft there. That's what the spring was riding on, if you remember before. Just like that. I think we've got it. And give it a test, make sure that everything's working fine. It is. There's a little chirp because I'm not lined up here with the side plate, but it's nothing to worry. Metal gear, collar gear. Well, let's finish this up then. I just got interrupted. I've forgotten where I am. That goes with age. Just make sure we put a little bit more grease onto the main gear. We've greased our pinion or spool gear. This is a little bit of a floater. This is our free spool release. We should now be able to go ahead and put that cover back on. Remember, those are the 3 small screws. They're tapered. They're going to go on next. Oops, see? Got to watch yourself. Next thing up is that spring before we can put that cover on. Remember, the taper, the small side on the taper goes down. Then we can put those little screws in. So this is where pictures help, because and parts trays help, because if you were ready to put that cover back on, if you're looking through your parts tray, just as I was doing, as I went to grab one of those tapered screws, I noticed that the spring was there, and that clearly is an indication, at least mentally, it's a tip that says go ahead and make sure that you reinstall that properly. But also pictures help too. If you're wondering where that spring came from at the end of it, if you didn't remember, well, now you know where it came from, because you took pictures along the way and you were able to go back in and retrace your steps. All right, this is the 3rd of those screws. Then the next one up then is that lever. And that lever should be up here somewhere. That seems to be operating properly. A quick little check. We can go ahead and put the lever screw back on. So if you like these kinds of videos, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel. I post all kinds of videos, not just working on older reels, although I do work on older reels. I work on current lineups as well, and I work on everything in between. I work on all types. This happens to be an ocean going reel, but I work on spinning reels, I work on freshwater reels, I work on essentially all of the reels that were manufactured. Takes a little bit of courage, especially with something like this where we don't have those schematics to go work with, but basically if you get an understanding for the mechanics of a reel, big gear drives a little gear, turns a spool, kind of almost universally. Then once you take them apart, you generally can logic those things out. But again, if you like this kind of thing, please subscribe. If you do subscribe, hit notifications. That way you'll see all the reels I'm working on, and you may find a favorite in there that you like. Maybe you have one that you own, and it'll show you how to do that servicing of your reel as well. All right, a couple more screws here. 3 more to be exact. We counted them on the way in. We're checking our parts tray on the way out. And we're ready to get this a turn and give it the final test. And Dan can display this one, or he can take it fishing with them. The drags have been serviced. The gears are greased. We've replaced a missing spool adjuster cap, which was causing the spool to chirp. And had to sacrifice a reel there, that Fluger reel, but better to have one working than 2 not working. Alright, we'll just tighten the rest of these up. These are heavy duty springs. Now we can put our star adjuster back on. Put our handle on. That's a big old screw. Tighten down our drag system. Give it a test. What a beautiful little reel. Doing everything it should, turning with a precision. No issues whatsoever on the click mechanisms. The drag is holding. This one's ready to go fishing again. So there you go. So Dan, that's one down, one to go. We're going to work on the Ocean City next. If you have any questions on this reel, or any reel in particular, please leave them in the comment section. I will be happy to try and answer them for you if I can, if I have that information. If you have if you like this video, please indicate that by liking it. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be repaired like Dan's, and you're not up for the task yourself, well, contact me by email on the business card that follows. I'll be happy to provide you with the repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle with a beautiful little Castey reel, and I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day.